I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, but please feel free to keep filling out your forms back there and bring them up to the staff table for us. I'll call the meeting to order and ask our clerk to do a roll call, please. Oh, sorry, Chevelli. You're one of the people back there.
Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jan Kaprowski.
Here.
Council Member Lauren Hendricks.
Present.
Council Member Scott Anderson.
Here.
Council Member Kathy Tilke.
Here.
Council Member Amy Yentes.
Here.
Council Member Scott September. A quorum is present.
Thank you, Chevelli. Councilmember September had a work event that he could not miss this evening. He sends his apologies for not being able to attend this evening. We are here for one item on our administrative agenda, and it is the discussion on the public on the concrete pipe gravity sewer rehab project, as we are most commonly referring to as WW 1060. I just want to make a quick statement as we start the meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening for the special council meeting that has been called regarding the Western Canal Sewer Rehab Project. As we are all aware, the sewer line is a critical piece of infrastructure serving the needs of over 15,000 households of Gilbert and is now in need of rehabilitation. Due to COVID-19 precautions, we were not able to create conditions for a more informal setting, but we will not conduct the meeting in the same manner as council meetings and communications from citizens. This is an opportunity for you to ask direct questions based on the information provided by the consultants and staff so that we can provide answers for you. However, even though this meeting will be more informal in nature, I will still enforce standards of decorum and civil dialogue. I will not tolerate any disrespect to anyone on this council or the town team, both staff and consultants. That is completely unacceptable to me, and upon occurrence, your dialogue will be cut off and you will be asked to sit down. We know this project has an impact on your property, and I want this meeting to be productive and respectful. We will begin this evening with a presentation by our team and then provide time for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is that good? All right, good evening. My name is Jason Montgomery. I'm the Senior Project Manager with the town CIP. I'm the project manager for this project, WW 1060. So my goal with this presentation is to provide an overall summary of the project development. However, be brief, just to ensure that adequate time is available to hear your questions and respond and have an open discussion. So this evening, I'm going to discuss the Western Canal corridor and the existing utilities along there, touch on the project timeline. We're going to discuss the rehabilitation approach that we're proposing for this project, review the project solutions that the project team developed, and briefly touch on the project scope. So as you're aware, we're here to discuss this section of the Western Canal, from Lindsay to approximately 800 feet west of Burke. This is a vital corridor for both town and SRP utilities. So touching first on the town utilities through this corridor, we have three critical pieces of infrastructure. First, shown by the green line, is our 36-inch sewer. This was installed in 1986 within a 25-foot public utility easement. This is made of reinforced concrete pipe with an HDPE liner. This pipe collects 3 million gallons a day of wastewater from approximately 15,000 households in the north part of Gilbert. Adjacent to that 36-inch sewer is an 18-inch reclaimed water line installed under the same project in 1986. This pipeline, once that wastewater is treated at our Neely Water Reclamation Facility, this takes that treated effluent and sends it to the reclaimed customers in the north part of town. This pipe is composed of asbestos cement. The town is actively looking to get rid of this pipe material in its system based on leak history and failures that we've experienced over time. So based on the age being 35 years old and the material that this pipe is made of, we know we're going to have to complete replacement of this line in the near future. South of these two pipelines, within a town-owned Gilbert parcel in the Western Canal, is a 24-inch potable water line. This was installed in 1991. It's made up of a concrete cylinder pipe. In 2018, we experienced a failure on this line within Freestone Park. That raised our awareness and concern over the integrity of this pipeline. We're currently underway on a project to complete an assessment of this pipe. We're looking to determine the remaining useful life, figure out what it's going to take to rehab or replace this line in the future, and develop projects within our budget and CIP plan to address this 24-inch line. However, we feel we're going to have to take immediate action to repair portions of it in the next 3 to 5 years. So these are the 3 critical pieces of town infrastructure that we have along the Western Canal. Now to touch on some of SRP's facilities that exist within this section. SRP, everybody knows, has the Western Canal, which is lateral 9.5. They also have a secondary delivery canal north of that, which is lateral 9.4. There's 2 sets of electrical transmission towers with both single poles and lattice towers. Those are a 500 kV on the south side of the Western Canal and a 230 kV on the north side. So this is a very critical corridor, like I've mentioned, for both town and SRP, and very congested. You can see highlighted in the orange hatched area there, that is SRP's existing easements for their overhead electrical. So focusing in on the section west of Burke, you see the town facilities here. That green line is the 36-inch sewer. The purple line is the 18-inch reclaimed water. The blue line just north of the Western Canal is the 24-inch potable water. The green shaded area is the town of Gilbert public utility easement. Oh, it's not going to show. And then the orange hatched area is SRP's easement. And you can see that west of Burke, the town's easement and the SRP easement share the same common line on the north edge. They're 36.5 feet from the southern property line of these parcels, extending the same distance north. Zooming in a little closer here just to give a feel for what the town utilities are and where they are relative in that parcel. You can see that green line, which is the sewer, the purple, which is the reclaimed water line, exists within that 25-foot easement, with the SRP easement overlapping that. Our easement was offset from the southern property line 11.5 feet because of the existing transmission tower that exists along that southern property line. So SRP required us to shift our easement north to provide adequate separation from their facility. So this is a cross-section of that same location, just to try to show a visual of the height and depth of the existing facilities. Starting from the left side, you can see that 500 kV tower there. Then you have the Western Canal. And between the Western Canal and that secondary delivery lateral is our 24-inch water. It straddles both of those canals. It's approximately 5.5 feet deep in this area. After you go right or north from that, you see that second SRP tower, which is the double circuit 230 kV tower. And then just north or to the right of that is the existing masonry wall on many of these parcels. To the right of that, 11.5 feet, you see the town of Gilbert public utility easement, which is 25 foot wide, which encompasses our 18-inch reclaimed water line with approximately 6 feet of cover, and the 36-inch sewer, which is approximately 15.5 feet of cover, 19 foot to the bottom of that pipe. This red dashed line here is the property line for these parcels. You can see that tower is just off the property line for these parcels. The green shaded area is the town of Gilbert public utility easement. where we had to shift that easement to the north back in 1986 when it was acquired by the town to provide that separation from that SRP tower. So just to kind of give some background here of this section west of Burke. This is an aerial image from 1986. That red line you see there is the north edge of both the SRP easement and the town easement. In 1986, when this pipe was installed, the Village 2 subdivision had constructed their southerly walls at the north edge of that easement. There was no obstructions within the SRP or town easement at that time. As we progress 30 years later, 2016, we see that many of the parcels have extended their wall to the south, likely with approval by SRP and the town at that point. But you can see that 6 of these 9 parcels have now built their masonry walls within the existing easement area, creating obstructions to access those 2 utilities. This is the easement language that the town acquired in 1985 along the Village 2 subdivision. I just wanted to read this just to go through what the rights the town has for this easement. The right to install, repair, maintain, alter, and operate exclusive sanitary sewers and effluent water lines in, into, upon, over, across, and under the subject real property. So this applies to those 9 parcels west of Burke, where the town acquired the easement after the subdivision plat was developed in 1978. We acquired this in 1985. Now we'll focus on the section from Burke to Lindsay. As you can see here, as I described in the other slide, the SRP and the town easements overlap each other. We have those 3 critical pieces of infrastructure through this segment. Zooming in a little further to show some detail of how they exist currently, we have our town easement in the green shaded area. The green line is the 36-inch sewer. The purple line is the reclaimed water line. And that blue line is our 24-inch potable water line. You can see the SRP easement is a little south of our easement here, but still overlaps. You can see that that 24-inch potable water line had to angle just after that SRP pole. And that was to provide clearance to the SRP pole and then jog to the south to where it straddles the canals going west. Looking at another zoomed in image here, you can see on these parcels that SRP easement is north of our town of Gilbert easement. Once again, with that town easement shaded in green, the SRP easement in the orange hatch, the town utilities there in the green, purple, and blue. Here's the cross section for that specific location. Once again, with that 500 kV tower on the south side of the Western Canal. Then you have your 230 double circuit kV, or 230 kV double circuit north of the Western Canal with that delivery canal 9.4 running immediately under that lattice tower. So 9.5 feet north of that tower footing is our 24-inch water. And we know that that's probably as close as SRP is going to let us get to that tower based on concerns over the structural integrity for that tower and having an active pressurized water line that close. There's significant concerns. 7.5 feet north of that, you have the property line for these parcels between Burke and Lindsay. You can see that town of Gilbert easement exists 21 feet roughly north of that property line and 4 feet south of that property line. So where that existing masonry wall is constructed on the south of these parcels, that is within the town of Gilbert public utility easement. Of course, there we have our 18-inch reclaimed at 7 feet of cover and our 36-inch sewer with approximately 20 feet to the bottom of the pipe. Just to show a visual here, that is the southern property line of these parcels where the easements overlap there. there's the green shaded easement area for these parcels. So just to provide some background on the easements through this subdivision, this is the Gluchessi Ranch Phase 2 subdivision. The town easement was dedicated on the subdivision plat. SRP's easement existed prior to, but is reflected on the plat as well. The easement language from that plat reads here: construction within easements, except by public agencies and utility companies, shall be limited to utilities and wood, wire, or removable section fencing. The parcels east of the Gluchessi Ranch is within the Rio Caballo subdivision. That was developed prior to the reclaimed water and sewer going in, so the easement was acquired by the town in 1985 via a separate document, and that reads similar to the Village 2 subdivision, where it grants the town the right to install, repair, maintain, alter, and operate that sanitary sewer and effluent water lines. So now I want to go over just a little of the time frame and the timeline of this project. So between 2015 and 2017, the town experienced some pretty significant failures on their wastewater system. Leighton Lakes Force Main, Crossroads Force Main, and a second Crossroads Force Main was significant failures in the system, which heightened the awareness of staff to complete an active inspection process for all of their wastewater infrastructure. Following these failures, WW1060 was initiated with a first phase to repair an immediate need on Ocotillo, but also had an effort to complete a video assessment of this pipeline along the Western Canal. So that assessment was completed on this 36-inch sewer from Lindsay all the way to Neely in 2017. Following that assessment, we saw a significant degradation of that pipeline, and we knew there was a need to bring on a design engineer to immediately begin design of this project. Our design engineer, Intellus, was hired in March 2018. Between mid-2018 and mid-2019, Intellus worked up 30% design plans. The scope of those design plans had the intent to relocate this 36-inch sewer outside of these 24 parcels. We had full intent to place that 36-inch sewer within SRP property, the town parcel, and outside of the residential parcels. Based on some initial collaboration meetings and working through those plans with SRP, it was deemed as a non-starter with zero chance of relocating this 36-inch sewer within the Western Canal, based on this being USA fee land by the Bureau of Reclamation, with zero potential to relocate that outside of the easement into the Western Canal. Since we have existing easement for these pipelines, it was a difficult argument to justify a need to relocate it in the Western Canal. They hold strict control of this corridor because it's so congested with existing utilities. They're very precautionary about what they place within the Western Canal. So at that time, Intellus went back to the drawing board, and between middle of 2019 to the middle of 2020, they looked at a higher level at what else we can do along this corridor. Through that year, we developed the 3 solutions you're going to see tonight. As you're all aware, in November of last year, we came to Town Council with a contract for Jacobs Engineering to assist with the land acquisition services. The town doesn't have a right-of-way agent on staff, so for any of these type of services, we hire consultants to assist with this effort and to provide that expertise in this area of work. So we brought the contract forward to council in November 2020, along with a resolution to begin discussing land acquisition with the landowners. Immediately after that, as you're aware, we began landowner outreach in the middle of December. The intent of those initial outreach meetings was to convey the scope of the project, to allow you to understand the need for this project, to answer questions, to try to identify significant impacts to your parcels and just to have that introductory meeting. We were able to have that meeting with a lot of you here tonight. So you can see here that land acquisition is tentatively scheduled to go from December of 2020 to the end of 2021. That is a tentative schedule, of course. The remainder of the project, we're looking to complete 100% design at the end of 2021, start construction sometime in the spring of 22, and complete construction in the middle of 23. So when we talk about rehabilitating this existing 36-inch sewer in place, this is the least invasive method to repair this pipe. We're trying to utilize that existing pipe in place, salvage it, and line that pipe. With that effort, there's 4 tasks or additional areas that have to go along with that effort. One being bypass. As you can imagine, 3 million gallons a day traveling down this sewer, we have to get those flows out of the pipe to be able to rehab the manholes and to line the pipe. So that's a significant effort to bypass those flows. Second, we would have to complete spot repairs. And what I mean by that is, let's say the crown of the pipe, the top of the pipe has failed, and you cannot insert that liner because the pipe has failed and is caving in on the flow line. We would have to go into these spot repair areas, these focused areas, and excavate down 20 feet to that pipe and install a new pipe in that location. Also, we would have to do manhole rehabilitation. These are significantly corroded and require rehab of each of the 6 manholes along this area. And then finally, we can install that cured in place pipe. So just to dive a little deeper into those 4 areas of work. So this is what a typical bypass setup looks like. This was down on Ocotillo when the first phase of this project was under construction. Similar flows. So you can see you have numerous plastic pipes laid out here on the surface. To bypass that 3 million gallons, it's likely we will have numerous pipes on the surface. We're not sure whether those would go north of the existing sewer or south within the town-owned parcel or potentially the Western Canal. That bypass plan will be worked out with our contractor down the road, but we just want to convey what that visual will look like. And this isn't just a single pipe. There's triple containment likely because of the environmental concerns of a sanitary sewer overflow adjacent to these waterways. And what that means is you have a pipe within a pipe within a pipe. So you have that triple protection to prevent spills within waterways. Another picture here just to show some scale of what that looks like. This is a significant effort to bypass those flows to complete the rehab option. So that spot repair. If we find areas in the pipe that are going to require us to go in and replace that pipe prior to lining it, it may look something like this. We don't know of any at this point until we do a better assessment. The last assessment was 3 years ago. We'll go in, do an assessment prior to lining it, and we'll identify these spot repair areas prior to starting construction. But this is just a general feel for what that may look like. So the excavation area, if you can see that, would be approximately 10 foot by 40 foot, maybe 20 foot deep in some areas. It's going to require significant shoring to provide safety for the laborers as they're doing the work down in the trench. There also needs to be a significant work area to stockpile soil, bring in materials, and have work for the area for the contractor to work. For this spot repair scenario, we'd be looking at approximately a 40-foot by 70-foot envelope there. So that would require removal of obstructions. We would have to remove the masonry walls that exist on these parcels. We would have to move structures out of the way, and we would be actively excavating in some of these parcels that need spot repairs. Here's a good visual of a similar situation to what we have. This is a 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe where the entire top of the pipe has failed. You can see all that's left is the bottom half of that pipe. This may be the case in some areas along this alignment. Secondly, we'll have to do manhole rehabilitation. There's 6 manholes between these 24 parcels that we will have to go into and rehab them due to significant corrosion. What that manhole rehabilitation effort looks like is inserting an inert material into the existing manhole. So we will have to excavate around that manhole approximately 10 foot by 10 foot to remove the cone of the manhole to allow the space to insert that liner within the existing manhole. To provide space for that contractor to work, it would likely be a 20 foot approximately by 50 foot area for staging of materials, soil, and equipment to get in there and do that work. Once again, requiring removal of the walls and obstructions within that area. You can see on the right there an activity very similar to what we would be proposing for these rehabs. After those rehabilitation efforts are completed, at that point, we would be looking to install that cured-in-place pipe. We're trying to utilize that technology because it's the least invasive solution for this degraded pipe. Cured-in-place pipe is a great technology. It really limits the extensive excavation and allows us to save that pipe in its current place. However, to install that cured-in-place pipe, there's a significant window to get the technology in there to insert that liner. As you can see here, typical setup for this size of liner being a 36-inch pipe, it would require a 2-truck train to set up over that manhole. You're going to have one truck that's hauling in the liner that is soaked with resin. That has to be held at a certain temperature so it doesn't begin to cure. So that's a refrigerated unit. You're also going to have a secondary truck that has the boiler equipment that once that liner's set, it puts in steam to cure that liner. You're also going to have a mechanism to deploy the liner. So what that looks like is setting up over this manhole and requiring roughly a 20-foot by 300-foot window to get in there that's unobstructed so we can insert a liner into this manhole. Now this won't have to occur at every manhole. They can typically do about 1,000 feet each way from a manhole. But we know this will have to happen in one of the backyards because they're spaced approximately 500 feet apart and there's a 2,500-foot run from Lindsay to Burke. So it's a significant amount of demolition and removal to complete this CIPP operation. Here's a picture of a typical setup by a company that does this type of work. You can see their 2-truck setup with their deployment equipment directly over the manhole, inserting the liner. So with that, the project team, as I mentioned, over the last year, worked up numerous criteria and solutions to address the issues we have along this corridor. I'm going to go over some of the criteria and the solutions. So these criteria informed the decision-making through the process of the development of these solutions. First one is improve the infrastructure reliability. So the goal we have is to give a 50 to 100-year design life for whatever we put in the ground. We need to increase the access. As you're aware, over time, obstructions have occurred along this easement. One of the criteria was to increase access along this alignment. Another criteria was to reduce the present impact to landowners, and that's strictly regarding the land acquisition effort. Next was to reduce the future impact to landowners. Next criteria we considered was the best value. And what I mean when I say best value is a cost-benefit analysis, how that solution addresses the other criteria we've set forth. And lastly, does that solution plan for the future? We need to make a decision today that plans for 50 to 100 years down the road, planning for the future for the town. I understand that 35 years ago, it likely wasn't a smart decision to put this pipeline in your backyard. But we're trying to make a decision today so we're not in the same situation down the road. With those criteria, the project team developed 3 solutions. The manhole access solution, the relocation solution, which is a partial relocation, and the in-place solution. So first, I'm going to cover the manhole access solution. You can see here, this is showing the area from Lindsay to west of Burke. The goal of this solution was just to acquire the land around those 6 manholes, just to provide us access for future maintenance. The orange highlighted area, if you can see that, apologize for the resolution. That orange highlighted area affects 7 parcels for those 6 manholes. And the goal of that was just to relocate the walls adjacent to those manholes so our maintenance crews would have access to pull up their combination cleaner from the south, utilizing the town parcel in the Western Canal, and have access to that manhole to clean the line. This will not give them access to do rehab work on that line, simply to perform required maintenance. So zooming in, this is on the east end near Lindsay. We would look to acquire just a triangular polygon there, or sorry, not a triangle, a polygon there that would allow our crews to get in there and access that manhole. Going west, here's another example of what that would look like for one of these manholes, where we would be acquiring the land to relocate those walls and provide access from the south that's unobstructed and outside of the resident's backyard. Here's an example west of Burke. So west of Burke is a different situation. Since our 25-foot utility easement is offset to the north 11.5 feet from the southern property line, in order for us to have continuous access to that manhole, we would require the entire 36.5 feet. So the 11.5 feet south of our easement and the easement in place to gain access to complete that maintenance. So to summarize that solution, right now our estimated construction cost just to complete the rehab of the pipe is approximately $4.2 million. Land acquisition costs and relocation costs are not included in that figure. Once we get appraisals completed and get good values for the land and the relocations, we'll be able to modify this value. This will only allow, or this solution only completes rehabilitation of the sewer pipe and manholes in their current location. The land acquisition is focused around 7 parcels to move the walls and acquire the land to access those 6 manholes. And the reason it's 7 parcels is because we have a manhole that's close to a property line, so we would need to acquire property on both parcels. Once again, this is only access for sewer maintenance. This does not assist with a future rehabilitation effort. So to kind of go over how this solution meets the criteria. It improves the infrastructure reliability. By lining this sewer line, we get that 50 to 100-year design life. It increases the access, and the reason that's a yellowish-brown check mark is because it partially increases the access. We're getting access to these manholes strictly for maintenance. We're not getting access to the sewer pipeline between the manholes, nor do we have access to that 18-inch reclaimed water line that we know will need work in the near future. How this solution reduces present impact to landowners? It does, because it only impacts those 7 landowners, and it only looks to acquire the area necessary for manhole access. It does not reduce the future impact to landowners, however. We know we're going to have to get back into this area to complete rehab of this pipe, whether it's 50 years down the road or whether it's 20 years down the road. Construction is not a perfect science. There may be issues that occur over the next period of time that requires us to get in there and do additional rehab of this line, and also to complete replacement of that 18-inch reclaimed water line. At that time, we would likely have to come back to many of the landowners, actually all of the landowners, and look for additional land to complete that activity. So it doesn't reduce the future impact to landowners. Therefore, it does not provide the best value for the town because it doesn't provide that significant benefit of having unobstructed access to these utilities. Nor does it plan for the future. This would be an interim solution to provide access strictly for maintenance. Next, I'll discuss the relocation solution, partial relocation solution. So we had the design team look at how can we shift all three of these pipelines as far south as possible with the existing SRP constraints. So they looked at the 36-inch sewer, 18-inch reclaimed, and 24-inch potable water. And can we push those south, replacing them in entirety right now as close as we can to those SRP towers in an effort to reduce the land acquisition for these 24 parcels. Highlighted in orange there is the anticipated land acquisition for this solution. Zooming in a little further, the result of this analysis was the sewer would be shifted as far south as possible. Right now we're showing it 10 feet off the footings for those towers, those SRP towers. We would then have the reclaimed water north of that with the 24-inch potable water furthest north. As we approach these SRP towers, we would likely have to jack and bore adjacent to the towers. And what we mean by that is we would have to auger to install a casing so we don't have open excavation next to those towers. Significant effort with a large casing to accommodate that 36-inch sewer. This would require significant collaboration with SRP that would have to be completed. This is a high-level preliminary design completed by our design team. As we move west past Burke, we are not looking to complete relocation. That relocation is partial between Burke and Lindsay. And the reason for that is that 24-inch potable water that currently straddles the Western Canal and that delivery canal will need replacement in the near future. It is highly probable that SRP will not allow us to place it where it currently is because there's not room to complete construction between those two canals. So that 36.5 feet there west of Burke, we would look to place that 24-inch potable water there when that is necessary in the future. So we did not feel that there was room to relocate these to the south for these 9 parcels west of Burke. So to summarize this solution, estimated construction cost is $8.2 million. And that's significantly higher than what you saw for the manhole access solution, mainly because we're looking to replace 2,500 feet of pipe for those 3 utilities, that water, sewer, and reclaimed water. The rest of it, west of Burke and throughout the remainder of the alignment, will be completed using those rehabilitation methods that I outlined in the presentation. The result of this solution, we were able to reduce the land acquisition for 12 parcels between Burke and Lindsay. It went from approximately 21 feet down to approximately 10 feet. As this was a preliminary design, it's going to require significant collaboration with SRP down the road. Likely extending the schedule of this project upwards of a year at least to have that collaboration with the risk along the way of a failure on that 36-inch sewer. How this solution addresses those criteria, it does improve the infrastructure reliability for the 3 pipelines. It does increase access as the acquisition associated with this solution provides unobstructed access along the entire corridor. It doesn't reduce the present impact to landowners because it still requires land acquisition from all 24 parcels. However, it does reduce some of the width for half of those parcels. It does reduce the future impact to landowners because we will not have to come back in the future for additional land to complete replacement of those 2 additional pipelines. It does not provide the best value for the town because it requires that 36-inch sewer to be relocated south, which is a significant effort for a 36-inch sewer 20 foot deep adjacent to SRP towers. It requires a significant design effort, extended schedule, and a significant construction effort to achieve this solution. This does plan for the future, though, as it gives us that utility corridor throughout this section. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the in-place solution. So this solution will rehab that existing 36-inch sewer in place, and the land acquisition associated with that would be the existing easement, in addition to some area south of that easement for the 9 parcels west of Burke and the 3 parcels immediately adjacent to Lindsay. You can see that in the highlighted area here. Showing a couple close-up images of what that looks like in certain areas along this alignment. These are between Burke and Lindsay. You can see that cross-hatched area, the red cross-hatched area, is the proposed land acquisition. North of that, that purple hatched area is a proposed 5-foot temporary construction easement. That's a temporary area that we would request from the landowner to allow us to move the wall to within your property. It would expire at the completion of construction and is strictly intended for us to do work on your property. You can see the proposed acquisition here is 21 feet from the southern property line. Looking at a section west of Burke, as I mentioned, since our easement is offset to the north 11.5 feet, it would require 36.5 feet of acquisition here. You can see our pipeline shown there. The red hatched area is the proposed acquisition, and the purple hatched area is that 5-foot temporary construction easement to allow us to build that masonry wall within the project back on your property, outside of the town's proposed acquisition area. So to summarize this solution, estimated construction cost is $4.3 million. That's strictly to rehab the pipe. So you can see it's comparative to the first solution because we're only looking to rehab that 36-inch sewer within the first and third solutions at this time. This would acquire the existing easement as well as the additional land south on many of those parcels. This would provide the area for us to complete the replacement of that reclaimed water line in the future and the potable water line in the future. How this solution meets those criteria: it does improve infrastructure reliability for that 36-inch sewer. It does increase access as we have unobstructed access to all 3 pipelines along this corridor. It doesn't reduce the present impact to landowners. We know that's a significant impact to each one of you. It acquires that existing easement from all 24 parcels with the additional 11.5 feet for west of Burke, and additional land to the south for the 3 parcels adjacent to Lindsay, where we would need access from the south and not to leave a remainder parcel on the southerly edge of your parcel. It does reduce the future impact to landowners, just in a sense that we will not have to come back to you in the future when we need to rehab these lines down the road. Therefore, we feel this is the best value for the town to proceed with this solution, as it plans for the future by providing us unobstructed access to this corridor. Here's a summary of the 3 solutions I just presented. Since all land acquisition is completed within this last project in the in-place solution, we feel this is the optimal solution to proceed for this project. Just to touch on some of the benefits associated with this solution, it increases the visibility and access to our critical infrastructure along this corridor. This sewer project is the first of 3 replacement projects that we see along this area. Second will be the potable water line. Third will be the reclaimed water line. We know that we will need to complete replacement of those additional utilities. This also accommodates future replacement or rehab efforts down the road, whether it's 20 years from now or 50 years from now. The Western Canal Corridor is constrained, as I showed, with town and SRP facilities. There is not potential for us to relocate within the Western Canal. We believe this solution mitigates ongoing and future conflicts from both the town and the residents' standpoint. And this provides the optimal solution for us to provide safe, reliable utility services to the community. With that, that is my presentation, and we can turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'll go ahead and call each person and ask you to come down to the podium and give us your question that you have. A couple of people didn't indicate whether they wish to speak or not. Deborah Kuhn, would you like to speak?
Mayor, quickly, how much time would you like me to put?
2 minutes at the most, I'd say. This is really just for questions. This isn't like the communications from citizens, so we'd like to have your questions at this point in time. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, at one point when we bought our property, I was concerned about the danger of the,
Sorry about that.
okay, of the power lines. And so we had somebody come out and test that for us, and it was equal to standing in front of the microwave. Since then, they've tripled those wires up there. There's like 3 times more wiring up there. And so I always wondered, why don't they just bury this? These lines right here, it'd be safer for us. Take up a lot less space and it'd be prettier. The other thing is the canal. I couldn't understand why they've never piped in the ditches there, the East and Western Canal, and the access to irrigation that was really intended for our properties in the first place. That ditch that goes back there, we were explained that that was our irrigation water. Also, he let us know that our irrigation pipes that were put in by the land developer before we bought our property were not put in well. They were very thin. Our pipes are collapsed in front of our yard that go along the front. I don't know how much the other neighbors know, but and our neighbors next to us have had them break, and it's a big mess to go down there to get to it. Our driveways go over the top, our sidewalks go over the top of it. And there's also our power, too, that comes to our houses that run through there. And it's a big mess, but they're going to fail. And I was always comforted knowing that irrigation that was behind our property would give us water. The other thing is there's so much room back there that the irrigation is, they never fill that up. It's a little bit of water that I've seen, once in a while. It's this tall, very rarely, water coming back there, and don't understand why they haven't buried that. But there is that space, and I know SRP probably owns that, but I think if Gilbert offered to bury that, I have spoken to our SRP, and they would like that, because then they wouldn't have to clean it and clear it and maintain it like that. So that was my conversation with them like 20 years ago. And
Deborah,
yes.
your time's up, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to address that, David? It's more of an SRP and Canal question than anything to do with this property tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. Thank you for the feedback. That you raise a lot of questions and concerns that town staff feels the same way in many instances, and would echo some of the concerns that you shared. In discussions with the Salt River Project, they have shared with us that is the land. Jason said earlier, I apologize, I'm David Fabiano, the town engineer, so you know who I am. That land is actually owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. It is managed by the Salt River Project. It's called USA Fee Land. Because it is USA Fee Land, there are additional challenges and obligations that exist there. We've talked to Salt River Project and asked about that, the canal that you've described, lateral line 0.5. There's not much water in it. We see that. It's been tiled or it's been put in pipe in places to the west. That piece of the canal from Lindsay to Gilbert has been designated an historic structure by the Bureau of Reclamation. And because it's a historic structure, they want to leave it as an open canal. Those are things, this is a complicated situation. The discussions from 20 years ago, I suspect, are very different than the ones that I've had recently with the Salt River Project. The town would very much like that to be a more safe and more beautiful, or as safe and as beautiful as it can be. There are many obstacles there. The town continues to reach out to the Salt River Project to discuss ways that could happen, but that is not within our control, not within our ability. But we are absolutely sympathetic to what you've shared with us tonight. Thank you.
Sir, if you want to ask a question, we'll take that after. Thank you. The next slip I have is from Leslie Nowak. You didn't indicate whether or not you wanted to speak? Okay. Come on down, Leslie. Thank you. Next on deck will be Donna Gluchessi, if you'd like to speak.
Okay, my question is for each one of you. Amy, did you, prior to this meeting, know anything about this project? Because that's a pretty lengthy presentation that was given to us. Took up all of our time. So prior to this meeting, what did you know about this project, may I ask?
Ma'am, I'm going to direct your questions to the events of this evening and the topic that we're here for. And
I thought I could ask a question. That was a simple question.
That's not a question about the project that we're here to answer with you tonight. We have team on hand to answer the questions that are very specific to this project.
So when this project was voted in, was that presentation that you just gave us given to the town council?
I'd be happy to answer that, David. The presentation in November when they voted, it was voting for a contract that Jason Montgomery actually answered or spoke to earlier in his presentation. It was to answer to the contract that they were going to place with Jason's firm to do the work that he's doing. It wasn't specifically about this project at that time, so that presentation was not given to the council at that time.
So when the vote happened to move ahead with the most profitable or most beneficial plan, how much of a wisdom behind the yes vote was given? That was my question.
The vote for that evening was the vote for the contract to hire the consultant to move forward with this portion of the project.
So what about land acquisition? Was that voted on?
Not that I know of. Chris, could you speak to that? Nothing that night. It was the contract at that point, Jason.
Mayor, if I might, thank you. Again, Mrs. Nowak, at that time, a resolution was also part of that for land acquisition to occur, and that was part of that, and it's on in the agenda for the meeting minutes from the meeting from that night. It was noticed and it was included that acquisition was contemplated.
It was just contemplated, but that contemplation was voted on. It was an approval.
The town council that night gave authority to the staff to approach the property owners and to begin negotiation for the acquisition of that area.
So that was voted on that night by this council?
That is correct.
With how much information was given? Because all I know is that Jacobs was approached, but not much. That presentation was that given?
This presentation was not given to the town council. The town council members had been visited with prior to let them know that this was coming, that this was something that was going to be on the agenda. They were given a briefing. That briefing was not as extensive as what has been shared here tonight.
Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you. Next, Donna Gluchessi, if you'd like to speak. We're not giving time away. If you have a question, and I'll call Stacy up when it's her point in time. Okay, thank you. Omar, would you like to speak? Thank you.
With all due respect, Mayor, I thought we had made the separate come here every other week for the council chamber members in order for the concerned citizens to have a meeting with the council members, not with the bureaucrats. We've heard this presentation, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 weeks ago, and now we're hearing the same presentation. Yeah, we've heard it, we don't agree with it, and we are concerned citizens. We're here to speak to our duly elected representatives, not to the, with all due respect, not to the bureaucrats. So I'm not seeing that. All they're doing is another sales job, which we've already listened to 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to leave you with one more statement. Imagine you had a very hard year last year with the COVID-19. As a small business owner, I did. Imagine coming home during Christmas holidays and you get this letter, FedEx from, was it Jason Engineering, that they're going to about to acquire your land. And then when we talked to all of our neighbors, it was figured out that it was actually done 2 years ago, but there was no communication. There was nothing, and it was just, oh, we're going to come and acquire your land. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Can I have Tom Patterson, please, if you'd like to come down and ask a question? And then Brian Tusini will be on deck, please.
I'd like to know the total cost for the third option, because the cost that you just gave us was just to replace the 36-inch pipe. It also does not reduce future impact because you're just replacing the 36-inch pipe. You're going to have to come back in and replace the sewer later on, from what you said. Also, second question, with your graphics, I still don't see how our backyards are not providing enough access, specifically in relation to my backyard. The manholes in my neighbor's yard, you could drive a semi-truck all the way through, 2 semi-trucks, you know, and you got plenty of room. Manhole, he doesn't have a backyard. Yeah, so those 2 questions.
So specific to the question about cost, the cost that was shown tonight is just to rehabilitate that 36-inch sewer. Costs for the land acquisition and relocation aren't included at this time because we don't have that information present right now.
Why is it included in number 2, but not in number 3?
The cost included.
The cost of the whole pipe is included in number 2, but not number 3.
The cost included in the in-place solution, number 3, is for the entire pipe. The cost included in the second solution for the relocation solution is to relocate 2,500 feet of pipe and then rehabilitate 7,500 remaining feet of pipe. So the costs you see tonight are all inclusive construction costs, but they don't include the land acquisition costs. That's why the first solution, which is looking to strictly rehab that 36-inch sewer, is very similar to the third solution because the scope is the same, aside from the land acquisition effort. Am I not clear on that one?
Yeah, I still don't think, that's not what you said earlier. You said it's just to fix the 36-inch pipe and not the remaining.
Correct. Am I missing something?
So what about all the other, the 2,500?
Please forgive me. I want to make sure that we understand the question correctly. It sounds as if you're asking about the future work that has to be done there, which is the 18-inch reclaimed water line and the 24-inch water line as well.
Yes.
Thank you for that. On the partial, on the relocation, which is the middle solution that Jason described, between Burke and Lindsay, those pipes would all be getting reconstructed for that 2,500-foot distance. Then from there, continuing on, the scope would only be for the sewer, and it would not be including work for the reclaimed water line or for that water line. Both of those are going to be future activities. We don't have cost estimates for those yet.
So why is it so important for option number 2 to do those things and skip 36-inch, but option number 3, it's very important to do number 36-inch and skip these two for later down the line?
I thank you for the question. Option number 2 and option number 3 are going to have very similar scope when it comes to the sewer is all going to be getting repaired or rehabilitated. In option number 2, and Jason, if I get this wrong, please help me. In option number 2, where it exists east of Burke, it's going to get a new trench and a new pipe put in the ground, and then where it's going west of Burke, we're going to be rehabilitating that existing 36-inch pipe in place.
Okay, I guess my point is that it's deceiving because the third option is only showing 4 million, just slightly more than the first option, and the second option is showing just way out of the roof, when in reality, option 2 and 3, very much closer, I would think, than what you're saying.
The cost estimate for option 2 is significantly higher because in the current project, we're going to be replacing 2,500 feet of that 24-inch potable water, 2,500 feet of the 18-inch reclaimed water, and physically moving the 36-inch sewer to the south. That's why the cost is significantly higher, because it's a significant effort to relocate those 3 for that 2,500 feet.
So you're relocating all 3 of them and not just the 36-inch?
Yes, sir. And the objective of that was to try to shift these as far south as we can to minimize the land acquisition.
Okay. I still think there's that fee land. You could fill that in and put pipes right there. You know. Anywho, I'm way over. Thank you.
I can address your specific question, the other
ahead,
additional
Jason.
questions. You had referenced your parcel, and yeah. I believe your parcel, you never relocated your wall to the south.
I did, yeah.
Oh, you have? So you just, does your parcel have gates on each side of your parcel?
It does.
So your parcel does not have as many obstructions as other parcels.
I know, I'm aware of that. The only obstruction that I'm aware of is a barn that's slightly over, and then that's really it. That's the only one I've heard of.
I don't know. I mean, specific to your parcel, there still is your southerly masonry wall, though, that obstructs the easement area.
That's a wall. It's a wall. 24 feet, $24 a foot to rebuild that. All right.
Brian? Tuscany? Thank you. And then I'll call Michael Lewis next.
So I don't know who this question directly goes to, but if this project was in place in 2017, why weren't we, when I bought my house in 2019, there was not a single mention of this. They did mention that we had the easement, which we were totally fine with, and we bought this wonderful piece of land with this giant backyard that our kids could run around in. Now it's literally going to get cut over half of what we thought we were buying, and there's no real justification as to why we weren't known that this project was 2 years in the making. Can you explain that?
Thank you, Ryan, for the question. Now, that's a difficult one. When we undertake projects, capital projects of this nature, this one actually began as a study. And when you're looking at it and trying to understand and move forward, at the time the project began, it looked to move the sewer line physically outside of those backyards as much as possible so that it would reduce the impact to everyone. And in consultation with the Salt River Project, the answer was no. And it was repeatedly given to us as no. And so that's when we started looking for other alternatives. And while those alternatives are being examined, we're looking at those from the position and perspective of the town has infrastructure, utility infrastructure here that we don't have a choice. It has to remain functional today and into the future, 50, 100, 200 years. As long as the town remains a town, that infrastructure has to function because all of us want to be able to use our sanitary facilities inside of our homes. We want to have water in our homes. And so that's the way we were looking at it. We were analyzing it. And when we found that we needed to be able to, when property was going to be necessary, we felt necessary, then we briefed the council members and told them what we were what the intent was. And that's when the contract was also engaged with a consultant to begin a property acquisition process.
When was that? Like, when was that approval given then to move forward with the new project?
In November of last year, it was actually a different council that approved that contract upon recommendation of staff.
Okay.
Michael Lewis. And next I'll have Shar Hawkins.
So of the three options that you had, it sounds like the first option was going to have the least amount of land acquisition. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay, well, why wasn't that given more credibility than the other two? Because it seems to me that you gave all these, well, we might have to dig it up because it might have, some problems on the outer shell or whatever you called it. But we don't know if there is damage. Wouldn't it be to everybody's advantage if we decided or found out if there was damage first before we made a decision on, all these land acquisitions rather than just going out and saying, let's do number 3 instead of number 1?
Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the question. We did, as Jason alluded, in 2017, a visual assessment was done by floating a camera through that 36-inch pipe. And we found several areas and the pipe is degrading, the manholes are degraded. There are places where the liner inside that pipe is sagging, so we believe the crown of the pipe is going to be found to be eroded greatly. Those point repairs are I would say highly likely to occur. The more distance that you have in a sewer line of this nature and of this material type, the longer it's been in service, the chances of the degradation happening grow.
There's chances.
The greater distance it grows. The chances are, I can't because I'm an engineer and I want to deal in certainty and not just speculation, but the chances approaching unity that there are going to be spot repairs. Every manhole in there will have to be rehabilitated. The proposed methods that we have right now, we are hopeful that all of those will work. We cannot guarantee that they will work. When you begin that excavation, we may find that that manhole is completely gone and it falls apart, and we're digging up the entire manhole, and the footprint that Jason showed tonight on those graphics grows substantially. When we go to that spot repair, and you start having to chase those because this is a concrete pipe, and one of the challenges that happens is that the condition in a sewer system, the gases that exist there, they're by nature, we can't get rid of them, they happen, those degrade concrete. The bacteria that is there, the waste byproduct off of the bacteria create an acid, the acid eats the concrete falls apart. The crown of the pipe falls in, the dirt frequently stays in place for extended periods of time, and what we have happen is a sinkhole will have a catastrophic failure, and a sinkhole will open up where that crown had degraded because the material will slowly begin to fall in and move away.
Don't the concrete pipes generally last more than 37 years?
Not in a sewer system. In a sewer system,
when David, can I jump in on that one?
Oh, thank you, Ken, please. This is Ken Snow. He's the manager for the wastewater division of the town.
Hello, sir. My name is Ken Snow, wastewater manager, as David just introduced me. That type of pipeline, the concrete, as Jason was describing, is lined with an HDP liner. There's many different proprietary names out there, but it is essentially pressed into the concrete. It delaminates from the surface, and that's what exposes the concrete. And so I guess to directly answer your question, the lifespan of that pipe depends greatly on the environment that it's in. We are seeing time frames of as low as, in this case, we would expect a 100-year life. Maybe of something you'd heard before. We are at 36 years, and on a NASCO grade, we're at grade 4. That is I believe the definition of that is a probable likely a failure. In some ways, this conversation is great because we are ahead of the failure. We are not standing in your backyard right now. We are not standing around a hole that is formed, and we are not trying to set up a bypass pipe to bypass 3 million gallons a day of sewage past the Western Canal all the way down to the Neely Wastewater Reclamation Facility. We are here before it's happened, and that in itself is a good thing. We recognize that it is difficult to understand that the pipeline that we can't see degrades. We know that all pipelines have a limited life. They have a limited life requiring that rehabilitation, and in particular, some of the things that Jason had brought up, the asbestos concrete pipe, we, from our experience in other locations in our system, know that that's going to also give us problems. The reclaimed water line is also of a material that we know is going to create problems for us as well.
Just a quick follow-up question. If that's the case, then why don't we run these things under the roads and I often see them being dug up, the regular sewer lines, instead of where they're going to put a parkway back there, a beautification project. You're going to have to dig up the beautification project. I mean, why don't we just reroute it under the roads then? I mean, wouldn't it be simpler?
Thank you. About the rerouting, that is a great question. The gravity sewer line, we're unable to reroute it. The reason we're unable to reroute it is because it falls by gravity. There isn't enough elevation difference that exists between where it's at, and we can't move it. To move it anywhere else makes the distance longer, and it becomes flat, and then it doesn't flow, and then it degrades even faster. So we physically can't move the sewer line. We're stuck with that one in its location. And the water line and the reclaimed water line, those were all placed decades ago in a location in a different condition than exists today.
Shar? Thank you. Next up, I'll have Rick Gluchessi, if you'd like to speak. Thank you, Marshall.
Why can't you, if this is a simple question, why can't you remove our walls, do the repairs, do the work, put our walls back up? Why do you have to take our land? Second question is, why is the commercial storage unit exempt from taking their property?
You want to respond to that?
Thank you. The removing the walls and then doing the work and putting the walls back, I appreciate that, and I apologize. I'm an engineer. I'm the town, and as an engineer, I'm going to look at things from that engineering perspective. And sometimes I may be insensitive to personal, and I apologize for that in advance. The walls will have to be removed for the work to be done, whether it's a replacement, whether it's a lining of any type. The walls are going to have to come down so that physically there is space for that work to be accomplished. And from an engineering perspective, and I apologize for the offense if I cause any, it would be foolish from an engineering perspective to put the walls back up knowing that we're going to have to take them down again 50 years in the future. Because this is something that the town's we'll have to be back here.
David, if I can add, there's some operational concerns that we do have as well. We do recognize that across the easement, access to the town easement is within the town's legal rights, but this does not mitigate the necessity for advanced coordination with the homeowner for the safety of the residents, the guests, children, pets, and if you have animals, because our operation requires bringing a 30,000-pound commercial vehicle to that manhole and to access it. The coordination has been in place for the past 36 years, and that has allowed us to preserve this gravity sewer up until this point. Now, gradually, as there has been improvements to many of those properties within the easement, including the masonry walls and structures and horse corrals. There's been slabs poured over the manholes. Many of the manholes have been buried. The cumulative effect of all of these items effectively delay or deny our ability to respond to the system's needs. The combination cleaner we use only has a reach of 700 feet. A blockage in that gravity sewer will surcharge North Gilbert with 3 million gallons of sewage a day. And that is our only access and our only way to maintain that system.
There's only one manhole maybe that might have a hard time getting to here, right? None of the others, they're not. So maybe if you want to address why the storage unit is exempt.
Thank you for that about the storage unit. And they're not exempt, but we're not talking about that facility tonight. The Salt River Project has indicated that the water line that is currently in between lateral 9.5 or the Western Canal, which we all know it by, and that irrigation delivery lateral to the north, they've said that that line, when we need to replace it, we cannot be back in that space. They've indicated that we're going to have to go into where that storage unit facility is at. At that point in time, we're going to be having a discussion with that property as well as part of that water line within the next probably 3 to 5 years. And it's likely that the same situation is going to happen there with that business, and we're going to potentially be acquiring that property as well. Again, that's speculative in nature. I apologize for that. That's based upon information that SRP has given within the past few weeks, and it's on work that's going to be happening in the future. The 18-inch reclaimed water line is also going to, again, need to be replaced. We will be able to do that within that easement area that's there at that storage on the self-storage property. So that, again, is a bridge we're going to be crossing at another day.
Rick Gluchessi, please. Next up. Pass. Okay, thank you. Greg Davis, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A few questions for Jason. The pipe, the lining, is it a class 4 that does not require structural stability from the existing pipe?
Hello, sir. On yet? There we go. Hello again. That design has not been completed of what class of pipe or what class of liner would be. However, those CIPP rehabilitations that we have already done in Gilbert, we will typically specify a class 4 fully structural CIPP liner.
If that's the case, the pipe doesn't really matter as long as you don't have an obstruction. You can line that pipe. Is that correct?
The question is, can we line the? I'm sorry. Can you speak into the microphone?
Sure.
Sir?
If there's no obstruction, you can still line that pipe even if the crown's gone or marginal.
That is not true, sir.
I've seen it. So
then you would accept additional construction risk in the placement of the CIPP liner. As you know, I seem to recall that clearly you know a thing or two about the CIPP liner. You probably know more than me. I'm just a wastewater guy, sir. But that CIPP liner cures. If you shoot that CIPP liner down the pipe and it gets hung up on a failed crown or balls up or twists, you are not going to get that CIPP liner out of there without a huge excavation, usually taking several people with chainsaws to remove the liner. It's a higher risk operation that you have a limited window to work.
yeah, that's where the inspection comes in. You'll know where that spot is and you can fix it prior to the lining. But the liner can still operate without the crown, even if it's gone.
In the cases, so the photo that Jason showed earlier of that spot repair, that was a project that I worked on previously. The best practice, I suppose we would consult with our CMAR and our engineers, but the best practice, from my understanding and just my experience, sir, is that we would do that spot repair so that we have a smooth transition and don't risk the failure of the pipe, failure of the CIPP installation, and have a smooth installation.
Yeah, maybe we can talk. I've only got 2 minutes, so
understood.
That's the subject
yes.
we can't talk. And Jason, when we were talking about removing the walls, those walls were going to be 8/8/16s, 8 foot high, correct?
That is correct, per the town development code, being that it's residential adjacent to public use property, it would be required to be 8-foot wall along your southern property line.
Yeah, and again, I don't have 2 minutes. I'd still like to talk to you about it, but if you look at the cost of moving those walls, buying the land, you got 3,200 feet of 8/8/16 wall, 8 foot high. That's $500,000. It's $142 a foot. Then you have land acquisition that's probably going to be around $900 to $1 million. Gilbert's going for $10 a square foot right now. With the square feet you are asking for, that's almost $1 million. Mayor, I don't have enough time to talk it, but I'd still like to meet with you, Jason, and go over it if it's possible.
Definitely.
I appreciate your time.
One thing that Jason did share during his presentation, the land acquisition costs were not in any of the estimates that he's shared. The options that we're looking for or looking at that we've considered, there's a substantial investment that's happening here. A question earlier about the walls, we know we're back into this area at least 2 more times because those facilities, and that's in the near future. The ACP pipe, if you remember the Gilbert days in 2016, we had Gilbert Road closed down because the 16-inch transite pipe, asbestos cement pipe burst under the railroad tracks, shut down, and it got Gilbert Days Parade. That was us. We're sorry. There's been many others of those, and so we're actively taking that transite out of the system because of reliability. So that 18-inch is going to get replaced. That 24-inch concrete cylinder pipe of that vintage has had reliability issues. It's located in a transmission corridor with 500,000 volts on one string and 230,000 volts on 2 other strings that are going along all the time, inducing currents. We've got issues where there's degradation happening in it. We're studying it right now to find out what it's going to take, and we believe we're going to be replacing all of that pipe here within the very near future so that we don't have more breaks like happened at Freestone and started to fill up that. That wasn't stormwater. That was the treated water coming out of the North Water Treatment Plant through a 36-inch pipe there. And we know these are problems that we're facing, and we're wanting to have reliable infrastructure. We're going to be in there. We're going to be impacting you. And if there was a way we could get out of your property and do it in the Western Canal, we would love to do that. We have been told over and over and over no by Salt River Project. I continue to ask. I keep getting told no, and I'll keep asking until we're done. But that's something we would like to be able to do. They're just not allowing us to do that.
Yeah, to your point on the 18-inch reclaimed water, there is technology out there. You don't have to dig it up. You can pipe burst it and pull another one in right behind it. So that seems like that would be the option versus when the time comes, just do that. It doesn't take any more access than what you would already have if you did option 1.
Another element of relocating these utilities from behind the walls is visibility. So to have our maintenance staff and our operations have active, open visibility of these pipelines to know when a leak occurs or when we have a blockage in our sewer line that's potentially creating an overflow, that's essential for us to continue operations of these lines, is to have that visibility to this infrastructure. We know that if we have a blockage in that 36-inch sewer, we have 8 hours from the time the blockage occurs before it's overflowing in somebody's backyard.
Yeah, but if you look at how many manholes, there's 23 manholes in this project?
22 across the entire alignment.
There's 3 that you can't see now. That's a very small number.
There are operational risks that have existed here. When you look back to early on, the walls were originally at Village 2 were not placed in the easement, and they've moved into it over time. I understand that. I would like to have a bigger backyard myself as well. But that's a situation that accrued over time. When those were constructed, the town of Gilbert had 30,000 residents, and when there's 30,000 residents, the criticality is much less than it is today. We're at a place approaching 300,000 residents within the town, and we don't believe it's prudent to look at and try to manage and operate those systems in the same way that they had been at that time when it was really a much different environment than it is today. Truly a different environment. There is a tremendous impact to the property owners here. We understand that. We know it. would love to be able to do something different. We just don't know that where we would be able to do something different.
Yeah, I've talked to many of the landowners, and they're not opposed to knocking down walls in the easement and letting you go back and forth to the manholes. That's only 2 rows of 4-inch block. That's nothing.
This is one, I'm going to share something that's visceral, and Ken is going to appreciate this. Oftentimes, the way we find out about utility failures is something's running in the gutter, and people call us. That's what happened on Gilbert days. Ken had the wonderful pleasure of finding a brown fountain down in South Gilbert a couple of different times, running in the gutter. And when that happens, we're talking to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. We're talking to the Environmental Protection Agency. We're in violations. We're having to do all kinds of Herculean efforts to clean up and to correct. Being in those rights of way is a better place to be. We agree. These were put here a long time ago in a different day and age, and we believe that given what the town has become and has grown into, that the criticality of these facilities is such that we're living with more risk than is appropriate for the town of Gilbert to live with from an operations and maintenance perspective, because we have to continue to operate and take care of these, not just tomorrow, not just 5 years from now, but 500 years from now, because we want the town of Gilbert to be vital and here, and I still want to be able to use it. I won't be here 500 years from now. But we want to be able to have those sanitary facilities available for the community, because that's what makes our lives so much better.
Yeah, I agree. They're in the bad location when they made that agreement, but there's got to be an easier way to do this. And I'd still like to talk to you guys. I know I've taken my 2 minutes.
You've done great, Greg. You're a wealth of knowledge. I'm appreciating the content.
Mr. Davis, I'd be happy to set up a meeting with myself, Ken Snow, potentially David Fabiano.
I love talking pipe.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sometimes you just have to laugh. Julia McCleve next, and then Victor McCleve, if you'd also like to speak. And Marshall, these two live in the same household, so you might not need to clean it right after Julia speaks to us, I think.
It lost power.
Mayor Peterson Peterson and committee, I'm a little confused here because I thought this was going to be a people meeting between us. I didn't know it was going to be the dog and pony show to tell us again what we've heard and heard and heard. I've been told that they can do one option, it would cause no problems. That's from the group over here. I love my backyard. I don't want to see it torn up. And I'm just concerned that we're not getting, he's giving us the dog and pony show, and I don't know if you guys even know what we're talking about. So it's just, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Julia. Victor, would you like to say anything? And then I have Stacy Adams.
I have a quick question. Madam Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity of being here. Council members, I appreciate you taking this time. But does my 2 minutes include just asking the questions or their time?
No, your time to ask questions, sir.
Thank you. I have a couple then. Jay, can I ask them directly?
Yes, just make sure you speak into the microphone, Victor.
Am I speaking in the microphone?
That's perfect.
Jason, can you fix the sewer problem with the existing easements?
As was shown on those figures that I presented this evening, the easement is adequate to rehabilitate the existing sewer in place, requiring demolition of walls and obstructions within that easement. We can rehabilitate that sewer in place and renew the life of that existing sewer. Then we would have to reconstruct those walls in the present location if that's where you're headed with that. And it doesn't increase the access to those facilities.
Okay, thank you. May I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Do you believe, and I don't know, I think Jason would be a good person. Jason, do you believe, after talking to the homeowners, that that you can get, that they will work with you to accomplish everything that you would like to accomplish on these utilities. What I'm really asking is, after you discussed with some members, do you believe that the homeowners that are there now will not work with the town to give them whatever they need to accomplish what needs to be accomplished?
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in on that one. I think you're asking a question that really isn't in the realm of for an engineer to be responding to.
Okay.
And you're, because we understand this is a gigantic impact. We do understand that. What we have tried to share is our perspective as clearly as we can to help you understand what the impacts will look like no matter what. Because you're going to see somewhere between 4 and 6 big, gigantic, long black snakes behind your property for a number of months while that bypass is in place, so whatever gets done can be done. The walls that are there are going to have to come down, and the obstructions that are there in that easement area have to come down so that the work can be accomplished. They have to come out so the work can be done. It would be imprudent from an engineering perspective, from an operations and maintenance perspective, to then put those walls back up where they were at prior to. It's more prudent to put those walls back up so that that easement area is protected and we have a dedicated utility corridor that can be operated and maintained in a more safe fashion. So you won't have a sinkhole show up in your backyard. You won't have a 24-inch water line burst and start flooding your house. Those things, that would be removed because that's going to be then outside of your property, and that's what we're trying to do. All of those impacts, it's all going to happen no matter what direction we go. Those walls are coming down, the obstructions are getting moved. The question is, do we put them back up where they were, or do we visit with each homeowner and come to an agreement as to what that is, provide the appropriate compensation, and then that wall goes back up into place where the conflict is now removed and it no longer exists in an easement, an encumbrance that's across that property. It's now in a fee situation, and the town now owns 100% of the problem, 100% of the liability. This is a situation that I'm going to look to the future. Something happens, you get a sinkhole. A child is in your backyard and falls into that hole. The town is going to be engaged in an active lawsuit because we can't avoid that. That's something we have, that's a duty that we have as the town. It's unavoidable. As a property owner with that land in your backyard, you're going to get engaged in that lawsuit as well because you own that fee title to that property. When it's now the town's property and not your property, you're not engaged and you're not involved in that when that horrible if a horrible situation like that occurred. Those are real situations, and as harsh as this sounds and as difficult as it is, this is from those perspectives, this is a better solution for the long term.
Okay, my third question here is, and you kind of answered it a little bit, but I still want to touch on it a little bit. When I was looking at your little marks up there where the check marks were, I didn't notice anything up there where it said what had less impact upon the existing homeowners. What would the existing homeowners most like? When all your checks are up there, they didn't really pertain to what I am concerned about. I don't believe. I didn't see that. If I did, I'm wrong.
Thank you. There were 2 columns that Jason shared in that graphic. One said reduce impacts, current impacts to property owners, reduce future impact to property owners. Those are based upon our perspectives. The criteria had been established and the scoring mechanism and all that stuff was there. So we believe we had talked to that, and we've tried to share as clearly as we're able all of the different aspects of this. No matter what we're going to do, we're going to be impacting your property. We're trying to, we can't stop impacts today. We're trying to reduce them in the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut. On that column that you were referring to, did it check that it was a positive for the homeowners or negative?
For which solution are you referring to?
For how it affected the homeowners.
It varies from solution to solution. Which one specifically were you, the in-place solution I imagine you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's not that important. You don't have to go that trouble.
So the in-place solution. Judy, can you give me back? Sorry about that.
His battery died.
I have another question.
Okay, Mr. McLeave, this is, so for the in-place solution, it doesn't reduce the present impact to the landowners because we're having to acquire land from all 24 parcels.
Okay. I just wish there's another one, or excuse me, I wish there was another place where you could put a check mark on what would be best in the minds of the homeowners, but I'll just leave that off for now.
Yeah, and I tried to preface that the impact I'm speaking of is strictly to the land acquisition area and effort for the project. I understand you see impact very differently than we do. It's a personal decision. It affects your home. I understand we see that differently. We just approached it from a land acquisition effort.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir.
Thank you, David Fabiano.
David?
Yes.
David, when you made a comment a few minutes ago about when the line was installed, that there's only 30,000 people living in the town of Gilbert. And then you made that you're making decisions now for what's going to happen 50, 100 to 200 years. Now, I remember before the line was put in that there was a general plan that was approved by the town of Gilbert, and I helped design it, by the way, so I know it was done for 250 plus thousand people. So before this line was installed, we believed that there was going to be in excess of 250,000 people living here. So the staff at that time made decisions based upon that knowledge. I know they had that knowledge. So why is it so important now to say that we're making decisions for 100 or 200 years in the future?
Thank you. I'm gonna. You have
I was
anything
just going
else?
to say,
Okay.
there's changes now from a few years ago. In 50 years, I think there's going to be a lot of changes. Certainly in 100 years, a lot of different options that's going to be available.
Thank you, Victor. I'm going to try to answer that question. When those utilities were put in, there were easements that were described across that land that said the only thing that goes in there are wood, wire, or removable type fencing, or utilities, no improvements. And I'm not. Please don't. I hope this doesn't come across wrong. There should be no block walls. There should be no barns. There should be no anything there other than the utilities and the ground. If you had turf across it, that's difficult to get a sewer cleaning truck across turf because it rips it up. So that's what was originally there, and that's what was intended. Over time, as does happen, this is a natural process. I've seen it more than once in my life and in my career. We tend to encroach onto things, and because that's just a natural occurrence. And that's what's happened here over the 35 years since these were installed. There have been encroachments into those easements that are really never should have been allowed or been placed there. And this is a situation where our intent and our desire is to, you know what? Let's perfect this out in fee, put your wall into a place where it can be forever going into the future. And now this is preserved as a utility corridor, and there can't be encroachments into it anymore. So, and we're going to have to cure all those things along the way to make it happen. Again, very, very, very difficult and personally upsetting to the property owners. I agree and understand, but that's what we're looking to do, is to take it back to the condition that it was intended to have been in, but it hasn't been kept in.
you do understand when they put, and I'm not speaking for behind KC Ranches. By the way, the masonry wall you're referring to was required by the town of Gilbert to be in there. They required that masonry fence. That's in that easement. The town required it. But that's not what I was going to say. When they put the easement behind Rio Caballo, they put the line in, and afterwards, after the line was in, they came back and asked us to sign the easements, just for references, and I don't believe there's an easement for the water line, is there?
I don't believe there is.
Okay, I just don't know. And I'm going to get out of here, but I do have just one other thing. And could I address it? And Jason can pass it on. But my understanding, Jason, is part of the reason for the acquisition or the condemnation. And isn't there, Jason, let me ask you, isn't there a policy in the town of Gilbert against condemning property? Don't they? I think they used to have a policy against
No,
that.
there's no policy. The town uses the power of eminent domain on a regular basis for in situations where it's necessary.
Where it's necessary. Okay, thank you.
We try to negotiate a reasonable settlement is what we always try to do, but the power of eminent domain is the town's, and it's something that the town can't surrender. And
I didn't mean they didn't do it, but I just thought they had a policy that they really didn't like using it. But that's not my question. My question, Jason, and I promise you I'm through, isn't part of the reason for this condemning or acquiring this property so you can put a landscape easement back behind there, or a trail easement, or
I'm actually going to take that one.
Okay, thank
you.
you.
Don't
I
mind,
didn't know who to
Victor,
go
I
to.
apologize, but I'm going to interrupt Jason.
No,
Jason,
thank
forgive
you.
me, please.
I just like to pick on him. He's a nice guy.
Jason is a wonderful man, and I am just I'm pleased, and he is truly a treasure and a great individual, and I am so grateful for the empathy and trying so hard to work and share through a very difficult situation. There isn't an intent to put a landscape easement back there. There's an existing pathway that exists, the Canal Service Road, that's there, that Salt River Project has, that folks use regularly for walking, riding their horses, driving in to bring hay to your property. That gets used all the time. That's there, people going through. Right now, the town has begun a study, actually MAG has kicked off a study in conjunction with the Salt River Project in the town to look at, is there an ability to make that multi-use that happens there, the trail, along that north side as well. That was kicked off. It has nothing to do with this project. Right now, on the south side, there's a concrete sidewalk there that's 6 feet wide when you're west of Burke. When you're east of Burke, it goes to 10 feet wide. Pretty narrow. We don't have room to put lights or anything like that. We're wanting to make that a more inviting and a better situation for the use that does happen there. And so that's a study is being done. It's going to be 15% design that Maricopa Association of Governments is paying for, that would look to utilize the SRP property for a multi-use, like it happens on the South Bank right now.
May I just say one thing? I met with Jason more than a couple of times, and he has always been very gentlemanly, and I appreciate the communication that I have had with him. I believe that when I was in the 5th grade, I think it was the 5th grade because I remember a teacher, and when she talked to us, and I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now, she said that that you need to be very concerned about the rights of the individual, because when you take away those rights, you take away rights from everybody, and she took a lot longer than I'm allowed to do here, but I truly understand what she is trying to teach me now. But I do appreciate the courtesy that I have been shown so far. I just hope that the council and staff will consider, and I believe that the cost has not been correctly, and I understand that. I think it's going to be a lot bigger number than that. But I do appreciate the courtesy that I have been shown. I just hope that we can communicate some more and hopefully come to an agreement that would make both the homeowners and the town happy. And thank you for your courtesy, and I apologize for taking so long.
Thank you, Victor. I appreciate the courtesy that you've shown this evening and the comments you've made about Jason. I have Stacy Adams next, please.
Mayor, may I ask a quick follow-up question for what Victor said?
Sure, go ahead, Councilmember Yantes.
David, maybe you could answer this. Why would the town of Gilbert require the Mason wall be built? Just
I don't know. I don't know, Councilmember Yantes.
Doesn't it, because it backs up to a public thoroughfare, and isn't that what you just said?
I think her question was regarding when it was constructed in 1985. We don't have the knowledge of why that was required back then.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Stacy. Thank you, everybody, for coming in on a day off, night off, right, and educating us on this process. We really appreciate your time, sincerely, even the peeps in the back. My quick question, just a quick yes or no. Does the sewer line run underneath the storage facility?
The sewer line runs underneath the parking and drive aisle in the storage facility.
Same sewer line?
Correct.
Yes.
Same time it was installed?
Correct.
I do not believe there was a storage facility there when the
no,
sewer line
same
was
sewer
constructed.
line. It
Same
wasn't
sewer line.
Okay, great. Okay, just wanted to get that there. The second thing, I wanted just a quick yes or no, because I know that you guys are away from your families. I want to confirm again that the MAG grant is not in any way, shape, or form affiliated with this project or the success of this project.
The MAG grant is not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with this project or the success of this project. That is correct.
Great. Third comment, Jason, we've been scrubbing the numbers that you've provided, and he is fabulous. What a great employee. I'm HR. I know good people, and I see good people here. And he's been a delight to work with. There are some discrepancies in your number. We have a very passionate, smart group of folks here, accountants, freaking engineers, right? Pipe dudes. But we have about $2 million that we can back into that is unaccounted for in these numbers. And these numbers, too, still don't include acquisition costs, right? So I just want to make sure that you sharpen your pencil and that the board, the council, is very aware that these are not good numbers that you guys are being fed and making decisions for the health and the spend of our town budget. I urge you, the Gilbert Board, per the Gilbert Board Commission and Committee Handbook, that one of you council members, please raise the reconsideration vote allowable under section 5.54. We plead for you to reconsider this vote. Clearly you understand we're passionate about this topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy. Thanks for your kind words about our team also. I appreciate that. It's not easy on any of us to be sitting here this evening, you or us. Trust me. David, Jason, Ken, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share based on everything that you've heard this evening?
I do, Mayor.
Thank you, Ken.
I would like to share with the residents that we've impacted that your cooperation over the past 36 years has been key to the success of the north side of Gilbert. We could not have maintained that line this long without your assistance. The coordination that you've allowed us to do has allowed us to bucket clean that line. That was a difficult task. It requires coordination with 2 homeowners scheduled simultaneously in addition to the contractor. We were able to do that, and that was a very nerve-wracking process for us. I wanted to share, because that bucket, as it drags through that line, we were afraid that it was going to grab that HDP liner and drag it down the pipe. It was a very ginger process, as you might imagine, with a delicate touch. That is a necessary step to maintain the line. We clean every pipe in the system every 5 years. It sees a cleaner every 5 years. It is inspected every 6. And you'll see that continue to go on as we maintain Gilbert's infrastructure so that Gilbert could remain a thriving community into the future. Thank you.
I wanted to apologize if I was long-winded. My intent wasn't to filibuster or take up any of your time longer than I felt was necessary. I just wanted to tell the story of the project development and to how we're in the situation we are today. So I appreciate your time. And if you have additional questions, please reach out to me in the future.
Mayor, I'd like to share that I wish there was a better answer. This is something that we've challenged the consultant team with very, very, very many times. We've looked to try to figure a different answer. We've challenged SRP, we've pushed on SRP, and we don't have a different answer. It's difficult and it hurts, and we understand that, and we apologize for the difficulty that it's causing you, but we do thank you for coming and expressing your concerns. If there is another answer, we're exploring it. We just can't find one, and as hard as this is, we have to take care of the whole of the community, because this is draining about a third of the flow that goes into the Neely Water Reclamation Plant. And at 3 million gallons a day of wastewater, at a 24-inch diameter water transmission main, an 18-inch reclaimed water main, those are vital arteries for the entire community. And the entire community depends on them. And we believe that for us to be able to service the entire community well, we're causing a tremendous impact to you now. But thank you so much for your time and coming.
Councilman, excuse me? I'm sorry, I can't hear a word you're saying from here.
Can I get a closing statement? I have 2 more statements after hearing all the other questions and answers.
Do you have questions that we... I'll give you this opportunity. Tom, right?
Yes.
Come on down, Tom. We're here. I want to make sure we get as much said as we can.
Thank you. This is a big help on your part. So I noticed in our questions and answers, there was no solid argument in response to me saying that you have plenty of access to our backyards. Your response was that you'd have to build another wall, and that's not cost effective. But in option 3, you're having to build an 8-foot wall. And so you're contradicting yourself. And you're saying the cost of putting our brick wall back up is more expensive than buying the land from us and building a wall for yourself. That's it.
I'm trying.
Is there a question
Tommy,
in there that you could ask?
Why am I giving? Why have I been given 2 different answers? That's the question.
Could you repeat the first one, please, and then pause for me if you wouldn't mind?
So I was saying that there's enough access for you guys to work on our backyards, and that you're saying from an engineer's perspective, it's not cost efficient to build a wall again after the fact, 50 years from now. But you're building that wall anyways, 8 feet.
Can we stop there, Tom? Do you mind? Tom, we're going to have to take down walls to do anything. Right where it's at, the walls have to come down to execute this work on just the sewer line. The walls would have to come down to execute work on the reclaimed water line. The walls will have to come down to execute work on the 24-inch water line. So the walls have to come down no matter what. Is it 100% of the walls or 80%? Walls are coming down no matter what we do. And to put the walls back up in the same spot would, in my opinion, not be prudent for the town, because we have to come back in here. We're going to be in here taking care of these utilities now with this one, in the next 3 to 5 years for the other 2, and forever with the operations and maintenance and replacement of them, because none of these pipes will last forever, and they all will need to be rehabilitated and or replaced given their lifetime. These are the arteries of the town. These aren't some of the smaller distribution lines that exist or smaller collection lines. These are ones that have to stay in service forever. They can't come out of service because they serve so many people. It'd be like trying to take your femoral artery out. You'd lose your legs when you do that, because your leg can no longer survive without that critical supply there to keep it viable. You had another question as well?
Well, to piggyback off of that, where's that 8-foot wall going to go then?
The proposal that we have and the direction that we are going forward is to put that 8-foot wall back at the property line of, once the town has acquired that easement and fee, we would move that wall and put a masonry wall up at the property line, and there would not be a wall inside any of that area that had previously had walls within it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Councilmember Anderson, did you have a comment?
Just very, very quickly. First, thanks to everyone for being here. But David, there is a question that's still lingering out there. Would you respond to why we generally don't bury 230 kV and 500 kV lines?
Mayor Peterson and Councilmember Anderson, thank you for asking that question. I apologize for missing that earlier. Burying 230 kilovolt lines and 500 kilovolt lines is physically possible. It's extremely expensive. The Salt River Project is the owner of those facilities, and that's something that they have expressed an unwillingness to even entertain. The cost per mile, the last numbers I've heard on 500 kilovolt is somewhere in the order of about $10 or $12 million per mile to do that. And their replacement has to happen more frequently. When they do that, they have to put them in oil-filled conduits. The oil is for cooling because of the heat that's generated. That oil has to be changed over. It just creates a huge amount of problems for them operationally. So it's really impractical to do that. There have been a couple of instances where people have buried 69,000 volt or 69 kV lines within the town. And the town has actually done that in a few locations. And we have found that to cost in about $2.5 million per mile for just that. And you haven't even begun to do any construction on the infrastructure that it is the town's responsibility, which is the sewer line, that trunk sewer main, that transmission water main, and that transmission reclaimed water main.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Does anyone else have any closing comments, thoughts? Vice Mayor?
I really appreciate having this meeting and having the open dialogue. I know this is such a difficult and challenging situation for everyone, and it's not a situation that we want to be in, but the can's been kicked down the road, until now, and we have to face it and we have to address it. But I hope the information provided today gives you a better understanding of why this project and the associated land acquisition is so vital and critical to our town. It's a very difficult situation for us to be in, and I greatly appreciate you being here, your thoughtful questions, your work in investigating all the options, and also our town staff for their great work as well in terms of evaluating the options and trying to explain as good as possible all of the engineering background that kind of goes into this. So just thank you to everybody that was here tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other closing comments? I will say, Omar?
If I can make one more comment. The option C, which is bad for the homeowners, I just want to let you know that it's not going to come very easy. The homeowners are not just going to acquiesce and give you the land. It will eventually wind up going to the attorneys. It will be a lot of negative, bad publicity for the town, for the council members, for you guys. And in the end, we'll go through attorneys and it'll cost the town a lot more money than so-called whatever budget you have right now. Having said that, I believe that, again, the homeowners are perfectly willing. We can build a second wall. You guys can come in behind the other wall, do whatever you need to do. And once you're done, we can go back to that option. So the fourth option is the free option, which you guys don't want to take. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Okay, I have to cut us off at some point. Ma'am, I'll let you come back up. You were first, so I'll let you come back up to close. And now that you've heard all the conversation, you might have different questions.
Yeah, I mentioned the danger of those being exposed to those power lines. I get shocked if I don't wear gloves with my horses and there's sparks. When I'm out at my barn, I get shocked. Sometimes I shock my horses. I shock myself. I'm a highly shocking person, but no one's addressed the danger of those power lines. Like I said, they've tripled them. And before you take my property, I'm going to ask all the neighbors all the way on down who are exposed to these power lines to revisit what we're being exposed to pressure SRP to have to, if I have to get a petition and start that movement. The other thing is if my barn is the actual structure that's in the way, that's over the top of this power line, I am willing to remove my barn if it's going to save everybody's backyards. And also, we can build gates to help you in and out of there. We can build gates and we can put up a temporary barrier for my horses while you do that work. My children that are playing or whatever, we can protect them. We can figure out a way and we can work with you. I think all of us are willing to work with you, take down our fences, put them back before you take our property. Our property is more valuable than the cost of a fence that's crumbling anyways, and in 50 years is going to have to be rebuilt anyways. Those blocks are coming loose. They're falling apart. They're not going to last 50 to 100 years anyhow. And so these are all things we are willing to work with you on. I still won't be, you're not going to be here, I'm not going to be here, the sewer will still be there, but things need replacing anyhow. And so I don't think you really have that doesn't make sense to me at all. So thank you so much.
Thank you. SRP is a completely different entity, so we can't speak for them and their lines, and good luck with that. It's a whole different ballgame. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We heard all of your concerns, and this is not an easy decision for any of us. It's not an easy decision for our staff. It's not an easy decision for any of us sitting up here as to what happens in the town of Gilbert. We can't control what happened in 1985. We can't control what has happened since then and what has been done on your land, and we can't. All I can say as your mayor now is I'm not here to plan just for the 4 years that I'm in this seat, or potentially more, but I'm planning for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years of this community, which I have been for the past 20 as I volunteered and serve as a council member. I think we are always looking for the future. I think technology changes, things change over time, and the sewer was put in the way that it was when it was, and things have changed over time, and we take everything that we do extremely seriously. We are your neighbors in this community. We live in this community, and Stacy pointed out, you're very well-educated people. You all have very diverse backgrounds, and we have all very diverse backgrounds, but we need this team because they're the experts on the subject. I couldn't possibly know everything about wastewater that Ken Snow knows. I couldn't possibly know everything about town engineering that David Fabiano knows, and I'm just getting to know Jason. I couldn't possibly know everything that he was able to share with you this evening. So we appreciate you coming out and hearing everything that we had to offer, and we continue to look forward to working with you on this as we move forward as a community. And I appreciate you being kind and courteous to one another, and I've heard that mentioned many times. Gilbert is a community of kindness, and I hope that I continue to see that from you all. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.